Hello everyone, Skippy here, and welcome to One Piece episode 990. Directed by Tatsuya Nagamine and supervised by Chu Young-sa and Masahiro Kitazaki. It's been well over a year since the last fully directed episode from our main series director Nagamine, and as if Onigashima from a production standpoint hasn't already been solid enough, we're finally being greeted with his next episode after so long. Bringing his dynamic and heavily impactful and atmospheric action to Luffy's first one-on-one in Onigashima with Luffy vs. Ulti. Giving it some absolutely premium treatment by also bringing Chu Young-sa along for the ride with animation and supervision, as well as veteran Masahiro Kitazaki, who's been supervising as an assistant here and there as of late, but is still great to see back in the supervisor's chair. The preview sure showed a lot as it is already in regards to not just the board, but also the crazy animation that we look to be looking forward to, so I don't know about you, but I'm ready to cut the chit chat and just dive right in to what should be another fanbase breaking hit from Nagamine. So will episode 990 hit like a real Thunder Bagua to the face? Let's get ready to fight and find out. This episode covers pages 6 through 16 of chapter 983, and while that helps it focus mostly on the Ulti and page 1 fight itself, making it one of the few One Piece episodes that focuses squarely on one fight, I think it hinders the episode as much as it helps it. While the fight between the three is well paced in of itself and doesn't really drag on for too long other than to create dramatic effect, I think the lack of covering some of the stragglers of the past few episodes like Zoro, Usopp, and Chopper and such, and hell even Momo like the start of the chapter did, makes it so the first half doesn't flow as well as it could have, and it would have helped it flow a bit better if some were included, because it is a bit odd that we have to cut from a really enjoyable dialogue sequence with Ulti and Luffy to a flashback that happened to literally last episode. And while I said I don't have much issue with certain things being dragged in the second half, I can't lie and say that some bits here and there in it wouldn't have been helped out as well if they did that. Obviously, the content itself doesn't really suffer because of this in terms of sheer adaptation from page to screen, and really in the grand scheme of things my issue is relatively small, especially when Nagamine really hits it off still, I think, with music choices that help bring an edge to this fight that I honestly wasn't expecting. But for me personally, I think it's still worth mentioning all the same, even in the face of what is at large a solid episode on this end. Now of course I know why they didn't do such a thing, because they're going to rearrange it all and maybe even extend some of it next episode, which I'm not against, as you all know. But I still think a scene or two placed in this episode instead would have evened out things a bit more and prevented a bit of a roadblock for me pacing wise. Even with all the crazy action we've seen in Wano, I still find Nagamine's action storyboarding to be exceptionally cool and dynamic compared to everyone else. As all throughout the episode, there's once again that feeling of the area that they're fighting in being a battlefield of sorts, and it helps all the action feel somewhat three-dimensional while still being rooted in 2D animation, of course. And that's helped even more so when Nagamine brings on some stylish angles during it all to spice things up that add both depth and scale to the battle that is already chock full of it. It all feels powerful and hard-hitting as a result of that, and while it may not be as in-depth as Zoro vs. Killer, for example, it gives it a unique Nagamine-like touch that helps you really get into it. And with stylish usage of compositing and colors in areas that help make name cards pop, as well as making Ulti transforming utterly terrifying, I'd say Nagamine struck gold once again, but with a few small issues. Personally, I didn't particularly like the reuse of that one cut of Yamato running through a hallway several times over, as I thought there could have been better ways to depict that same scene again and again, and some shots towards the end as Yamato is running with Luffy feel a bit too cramped and zoomed in for my liking. But I'd overall be lying if I said that everything above that all didn't manage to whisk it all away and deliver a more than great storyboard that helps bring us a nice assortment of animation on the visual side of things. While Chu Young-sa and Masahiro Kitazaki's corrections that are packed to the brim with thick line work and in Chu's case angular looking art are as far as the eye can see in this episode, the inclusion of assistant animation supervisors Akiko Zugizono and Maidon Ega's Hizawe help even stuff out a little bit and give this episode a really cool look visually that helps it stay unique while still being based in the series' usual visuals. And that doesn't stop either of the supervisors or assistant supervisors from giving us some great scenes either, like Sugizono's exceptionally character-filled piece with Luffy, Ulti, and page 1 that bends the line work and what her animation is capable of to its utmost limits for more bouncy fun times from her. Which is immediately followed up by Chu's insanely hard-hitting and impactful clash of minds of sorts with Ulti's headbutt that with quite possibly some of the best impact frames in the series make it all the much better outside of its already solid lighting and effects work that complements Chu's stunning art and powerful layouts. However, that only serves to be the beginning of things on the animation end, as we have a pretty packed lineup of animators from all over the world, ranging from the animators at Chinese studio Mind on Eiga participating again after last episode, to foreign animators like Van Oba from 971, as well as Dog Dog, that help pepper the episode visually with fittingly dynamic action that might feel a bit too ambitious for this episode in places, but still gives us some fun and well put together action all the same. And it finishes all up with what possibly might be the best scene in the entire episode, no questions asked, with the One Piece anime debut of industry icon Itsuki Tsuchigami, or who's better known as Miso. You all might know Miso from his work on series like Mob Psycho 100, where he not only directed an incredibly animated episode of the show in its second season, but was a constant provider of insanely loose yet weighty animation as well that blew everyone away every single time. And while he provided some key animation on One Piece Stampede for a rather low-key scene towards the end, this is his first time on the anime itself as a self-proclaimed fan of the franchise and Katsumi Ishizuka as well, bringing that same elegant spacing and almost paper shred like effects work and line work to the introduction of Yamato onto the scene and their following Thunder Bagua. That feels just as weighty as it should without the need for many impact frames, and has an absolute ball with the name of the attack itself by pulling a Kojima and having the kanji for the attack name appear on screen through effects work, all before Yamato's mask with exceptionally well-drawn hair envelops the screen. With absurdly sexy art on top of all of that, which gives a looser yet still One Piece take on Luffy, as well as the incredible line work on stuff like Yamato's robe, Miso finishes off 990 with a hard-hitting attack that will help this episode be remembered for a long while. Sure, it's got its fair bit of nitpicky issues, quite like Nagamine's previous episode before this on the pacing and boarding side of things, but just like that episode, I'd be an absolute fool to say that everything else surrounding it doesn't make up for it in the slightest. The mishmash of different styles of not only art but also animation that perfectly serviced Nagamine's sick action board really did help this episode in spite of the few areas that it faltered in, and brought upon some of my new favorite all-time scenes in Wano and showed that even when everyone else on the staff can be insanely good, nobody's doing it quite like Nagamine. And with next week's episode 991, we seem to be following up this all with what looks like a more normal, but surprisingly interesting looking episode all the same that doesn't look like it moved nearly as much as this week, but still looks to be harboring a few deep cuts of animation as well as some small bits of connective tissue filler that I'm always in the mood for. We don't know the staff for it just yet, so I can't confidently make any predictions, but I'm sure it'll be a competently done follow-up to the past 2 weeks of series director episodes. Anyways guys, that's it for now. I'm Skippy, and thank God Ulti's dino colors aren't too crazy.